like it. It's easy.
It's like
There's nothing wrong with
it's
it.
like a cell phone.
Yeah, you're
That's
still
very
using
nice.
your flip phone. I know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got rid of the smartphone. It was too much irritating. I don't need all that information crap during the day.
Remind me or Justin the password. Or maybe it's already in here. Hang on one sec. It might already, like be a part of my computer.
I should know it by heart by now.
Oh, never mind. It went in.
Good.
Thank you.
You made it. All right.
Oh yeah. Had an old shirt in the car so I could take work clothes off.
Okay.
Real formal here.
Regular Clark Kent.
Let's see here. That looks okay. It's a detailed picture in here.
So, yeah, it's a little different than a dimensional variance.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a normal lot. I looked up online. It's 45 by something, right?
45 by 131, yeah.
So it's buildable. So that's why I'm confused.
Yeah, 45 in that area. That's what's R3, right?
What,
Or is 50 in R3?
what's the confusion?
45.
It's 45, so
R3,
it's buildable.
or not 50.
Right.
Or 50's in R4, right?
Well, yeah. So this is what 2008.
Are all those houses zoned R3? Oh, that's terrible.
Well, that's why.
Oh, no. Okay, maybe someone of knowledge of real estate on that board. This is
Sold out in 2008. We can talk about it.
Okay, please.
But
I've seen a lot of that stuff.
yeah.
Do you know the houses next to me, behind me, are zoned multiple families? No, that changed. In 09. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't conforming.
You got password is for the Wi-Fi.
I think it is.
So anyway, where'd you say that's going from?
It is so long ago.
Well,
that it just has been
what
saved.
I was told yesterday was that they were looking
Like
into
it? You know, I recommend doing that anyway. It's much faster.
Oh, really?
If you log into the guest Wi-Fi here, it's extremely
It
slow.
starts,
Oh, good to know.
They're gonna
Well, I
meet in the
pulled up
Withington
the thing
parking lot.
earlier today, and I figured it would be just sitting open, but
yeah,
apparently,
and then they'll,
They haven't updated
because I was looking at another email, the Adobe thing closed. It makes
they
no
were supposed to do
sense.
it yesterday.
Well,
Is that the
I
iPad Pro?
I heard a rumor that it was
Not
changed.
this.
I don't know. Just the regular one, I think. No, I bought it at
Well, that's all right. That's where the Trump people usually are.
the regular one.
Well, there's like
Yeah, but they're
6
closing
at
9
this point.
miles.
I've got an iPad 2,
Two.
which is pretty old at this
Oh,
point.
I think it's probably 3 or 4. What are they at right now? 7?
The Pro is the newest one. They have one that's like 12 inches and one that's like the regular iPad size. I'm trying to decide right now.
And it's still going to end at affirmation.
Microsoft
Geary.
No?
Ah,
It's,
okay.
it's more up to date.
Are we
The
having
one I have one with a low websites anymore. This
9
is
mile.
processor.
Yeah.
Really solid.
I mean, honestly, like,
I thought I
the
heard
amount,
something
like, I thought,
nothing.
man, really, like, I think I paid $325, and I was like,
I really like the Planned Parenthood thing. From there to affirmation, I think is a statement.
like to get a toy.
Yeah, except
And I use this thing.
to get MDOT to shut down Woodward
Not every
in
day.
that short order.
So it's really convenient, I feel like.
I
Right.
thought the same thing
Oh, they
when I
didn't?
first got mine, and then I very quickly
They probably do
replaced
need
it
to
in the
keep the
laptop
down low.
for work. I've got a keyboard for it. I can type on it. I can,
Yeah, I don't know if you notice every morning there's usually 3 or 4 out
I
there.
need to do on a day-to-day basis aside from intensive word processing. I can do
Oh,
on
FYI, we're
Yeah.
recording.
All we need is the,
the new ones.
I
are
think
powerful
I think the
enough to
important
do
I think the
intensive
important thing to
word
do is
processing.
set precedent by putting a white supremacist on your book.
last week's had a nice,
It's like saying, "Oh, here I am, folks. Let me stick you in the eye with a pin or something," you know? Jeez. We have 2.
My health club directors
Sheila.
No, I haven't yet. I don't.
Laura was coming, but
Just follow
I'd
me.
rather be a producer. The director's not going to see me. Do we have more coming?
Laura may come, but I think we have enough to get.
Yeah, we've got the 5.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Who else would it be?
That's it.
Just Laura.
That's what I thought, yeah.
No, we need a 4 vote, though. I said we need a 4 vote.
Get 1, 2, 3, if we got 5 people.
Right. I'm just saying I'll announce that first.
Okay.
All right. Are we ready? Call to order Board of Zoning Appeals regular meeting Tuesday, November 15th. Before I continue in any way, shape, or form, we have some seats open yet this evening. You still need 4 votes to get an approval. So you do have the right, if you wish to come back at a future meeting, wait and for a full board to be here, I give you that option. Want to go for it? Okay, here's what we're going to do this evening then. I'll start a public hearing. Then you will present your case as to what you want to do and why. Anybody in the audience will have a chance to call or to respond at the end. The second item on there will be the City of Ferndale will respond as to why we're here at the board meeting, and then the public will speak, and then it will be closed and we'll go back to the board for discussion. Okay? All right? Come on up, introduce yourself.
Roll call.
How about roll
Hey,
call?
whoops, I got to do the roll call first.
Sorry. I just told him
Yeah,
that.
and don't we need to approve the minutes?
And we need to.
We do. I'll give you a break.
He went 3 steps further than,
See what happens when you come
he
from
was
work?
ready to go.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Okay, Pollica,
Here.
Williamson,
Here.
Palmer,
Here.
Moore, Steidemann,
Present.
and Porter.
Here. Next item, approval of the agenda from the meeting of October 18th. Does anybody wish to make a motion or have corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda of October 18th, today. Oh, no, excuse me,
Are we approving the agenda or are we approving the minutes?
excuse me.
Minutes.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Aren't we going to approve the agenda first?
I think we need to approve the agenda,
Oh,
but
man, I'm too misread.
I
I
think
should
we,
have done that.
I know. We need to approve the agenda, so
Do the agenda.
I'm going to approve the agenda.
Thank
You're
you.
going to make a motion to
I'm
approve?
going to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do we have support?
And I'll second that
Okay.
motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. See, I'm too
Now, if
wired,
you would like-
too wired up.
If you would like, Your Honor, I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on October 18th, 2016.
Minutes should be next. That sounds good to me. Do we have a second to the motion?
That's between you and me.
What's the motion to approve the
approve the
minutes?
minutes.
Yeah, I support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Pollica,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Steidemann, and Porter.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Okay, no, I'm sorry about that. I'm still at work in my head here, and we shall call the public hearing to order. If you'll give us your name and present your facts for us.
Sure. My name's Noah Dorfman. I own 244 Vester, and I'm here tonight because I would like to get a variance to build a single-family home where the single-family home is currently. One of the bigger reasons is that being in the middle of the block, I think it's hard to conform to an R3 zoning. It will be a little bit out of the ordinary in that landscape. And also, it's one of the few houses on that street that does have a driveway. There's a huge parking problem on that street already. So not only will I be able to have a garage off the alley to park 2 cars, but I would also have space for 2 cars to be in the driveway in front. So it would really have no burden on the already obviously very congested street. So that's what I'm here for this evening.
I appreciate that. And from the city?
Sure. So just to give a little bit of background, so in the R3 districts, R3 is defined as single/multiple family residential. Existing single family homes are permitted to remain in the district, but expansions, things like that of that nature are not permitted as they're non-conforming uses.
Under the current ordinance.
Under the current ordinance. And obviously in this case, the applicant's proposing to build a new structure. The coming master plan, it does propose to update this amendment to allow, or ordinance to allow for newly single constructed homes in the R3 districts. Unfortunately, we couldn't move forward with a site plan or anything like that until the master plan's approved. But in discussions with the applicant, it did seem like there was a case to be made for a use variance consideration. Obviously, this is the first use variance that this board has seen, a little different than dimensional. So in your packet, I kind of outlaid the criteria in addition to the normal requirements of appeal. So just going through some of the use variance considerations, and some of these items were in the applicant's actual documented application as well. But the parcel at its current size, as the applicant stated, can't really be developed as a multiple family development unless adjacent parcels were needed or were acquired to provide parking, landscape, all the things that go with a multiple family development. And so in that kind of covers off on number 1 and 2 in that it's kind of a unique circumstance and it's a hardship to sort of require accumulation of parcels to make a multiple family development. The proposed use will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, so the proposed use as a new single family dwelling really is in line with the existing neighborhood on Vester Street there. Furthermore, just in looking at the 2008 master plan and seeing the background and the intent of the R3 district and of why it was created. So just coming from section 24-41, the intent of R3 single/multiple family is to be composed of a residential district of those areas in the city where the principal intended uses are single and multiple family at a lower density than R4, being compatible with single family residential districts in relation to setbacks and uses. So it seemed to me that the intent of the district didn't really align with the use chart in the existing ordinance, which is why we're sort of proposing that change in the future. In speaking with the applicant, it seemed as though this might be a good case for a use variance, and they wanted to present further to you guys. So I'm here for questions if you have any others.
Fantastic. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the board this evening? For, against, whatever, just give us your name.
No, I live at 238 Vester, which is right next door to 244 Vester.
Your name, please?
Laura Griffin.
Hi.
I've lived there for about almost 35 years now. And I could probably, if I was limber enough and young enough, I could probably plank from my dining room into their dining room window. So the houses are that close. That house, I believe, caught on fire 3 times this summer, and there was a gas leak. It's just been a nightmare. So I don't know what they can do to fix it. There was a terrible landlord there who didn't do anything. There were rats coming in the dryer because the vent was under the house. It was just a mess from what I understand. Neither here nor there, other than that this house is very close to my house. I don't know that I'm against there being a new house. It'd probably be nice to have a new house. However, my concerns are, I don't want to live in a tomb. I don't know what the size of this thing is going to be, how close it's going to be, blocking off my light, blocking off my, I have a front porch that you sit out on. It extends my house. Excuse me. So I have those kind of concerns. I have concerns about if my grandson, which he would never do because I'd be afraid he'd get bit by a rat, played in between the house with dirt, I would end up having to wash it off the side of my house. So the destroying of a house and that's gonna get on my house. You know what I mean? I want to know that somebody's going to be responsible for all that kind of stuff. Other than that, I don't have a problem with it. I want to lose my light and I don't want to lose, I don't want to have to be picking up after somebody else's stuff. And I don't know how far apart is it going to be from my house. Because this one could have, I called the fire department when it caught on fire for a second time this summer after they had been out there already, only because I walked out on my front porch and it was smoking. You know, and it could have, they're very close. So it starts there, it's going to get me and my kids. So those are my concerns, and maybe you can address that.
If I may ask, do we have the setback on the current house right now, and can you recite for her what the setback regulations would be if a new build happens?
I don't have the existing setback. The applicant might know that from his survey, but the setback should a single-family home be newly built there, it would be a minimum of 5 feet
From the property line.
from the property line for a side setback.
So,
If the home were to be built, it would have to conform to single-family home
Right.
standards. As far
The
and
current
there is a height
standards.
maximum and things like that. That I don't know off the top of my head, but it would be reasonable. I mean, in keeping with the neighborhood.
So it wouldn't be something, you know, it's just that the light that comes in those side windows, which there's already a house there, and the front windows, because the houses are not, you know, open inside. So whatever comes in on the other side of the house doesn't hit. I just don't want to feel like I'm in like the dark all the time. So that's my, you know, my concern in terms of if it's real big and blocks everything out.
excuse
Can
me.
you explain that to me? Sure. Okay.
Well, that was really the main reason why we didn't want to build.
If you're going to respond, I need you to come up to the microphone, please.
The main reason why we're here was because we didn't want to build something that was so large that would overpower the neighborhood. And one of our concerns is the setbacks and them being so close. So we are very conscious of that. Our plan is a 45-foot wide lot. We're thinking something more along the lines of 30, 32 feet as the width, pushing it as close to the driveway. I'm not sure which house is yours. I believe it's the blue or gray one. That's right. Yeah. So we would be trying to push it to the east a little bit with still keeping the driveway there. Because I feel like that's probably not even 5 feet right now. From the fence line to the house. Yeah. I mean,
Excuse
it's
me.
very tight. And just to address some of the other issues, you know, we did take care of, there was a rat infestation. We did take care of that already. And some of the concerns too is that the structure of that house is just not really in good condition. If you stand in the floor in the middle of the house, it's about a foot or 2 feet higher than the outside of the house. Pretty much no door closes in the house. I mean, it is not in good shape.
And
Okay.
From the city's perspective, in talking of the building department about the condition of the home, that this was kind of one that stuck out on the block as one that's been in bad condition for a while. And just so everyone knows kind of the standards for demolition, we have a process that includes rodent abatement we have to receive a certified letter that says it's been, you know, vermin-free for a certain number of days. And there's an entire process that kind of goes with it that includes our building inspectors. So there is a process that would, you know, protect your house from being damaged from demolition.
Also, during the demolition,
One moment, please.
Also, I just want to assure you that the standards today, because of the 5-foot setback, is much larger than what it was when they were built. So you might even get more light. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it in here. I think you said 1,400 square feet was what you were trying to build?
somewhere between 12 and 1,400.
And you're going to completely redo the foundation as well? You're not building on the old foundation?
No.
Yeah, you should probably definitely get more room then.
Yes.
And probably you'd like it better than a R3 goes up to 3-story multifamily? Probably better than a 3-story multifamily as well.
And really, to make it work, you would have to use the whole backyard as your parking lot. You would have to build a monstrosity that was literally from lot line to lot line as much as you could. And that's really what we were avoiding by coming here.
I have a question of Justin. So if we decide to allow for the variance, it then goes from that one lot, then goes from an R3 to a what?
It would remain R3 zoned, but this would be a use variance.
Okay, so,
So it's not a full rezoning.
okay, so then my question is, would the builder be allowed to utilize the limitations or I'm not sure what the
Guidelines.
proper guidelines of an R3 structure
To build
to build
A single
a
family.
single-family home?
not to my knowledge, no, it would have to be in
it's a use.
keeping, excuse me?
That's what I was thinking, because the use is the factor. It's not,
Yeah, because the last thing we would want is, a Bigfoot home, Um,
45
because
foot.
if so much square footage and so much, so much is allowed for a R3 size structure, I want to make sure that tonight we're not giving the approval of saying, well, you can build a single-family home using the requirements of an R3 structure.
Right.
So
Right.
could we put that into the statement then, basically
using,
requiring an R1
that's the thing.
code?
Yeah.
Single family,
Yeah.
By keeping the driveway there on the east side of the property, it basically makes it so you're not gonna be able to spread it across that whole property. So it kind of conforms and confines you to that, part of the parcel.
I'm curious to know, if I may, through the chair, I'm curious to know, you said about 32 feet wide. How far back are you planning on going?
I think around 40, I think, is that. So it's
Okay.
about 30 by 40. It'd be like
So you're planning on a full 2-story home, not a bungalow?
I have not done anything with the plans yet because I haven't gotten a variance yet.
Gotcha.
So really, at this point, it's just, ideas. What we were thinking was something that had a little bit of setback on the second floor if we were to do that. So there was that still keeping with the front porch kind of feel of Ferndale and having that, roof over that, which kind of gives it a better feel and doesn't kind of tower over the street.
Any further questions?
Are we doing a board discussion at this point, or are we still doing questions?
Just related to the discussion was
That's what was out there.
in action at this point.
Okay, no questions of the applicant at this point then, no.
Okay. And at that point, I'd like to thank you for your comments. We will close the public hearing. We will now come to discussion of the board. Is there any discussion at this point regarding this?
Through the chair, I do have some. I want to start by saying that I personally support the idea of changing the R3 zoning so that we can add single-family homes into the R3. I think we have a lot of properties in the city that are comparable to this property that make more sense to me possibly to be a single-family home as opposed to a multifamily home. That said, that's part of the problem. We have a lot of properties that are just like this property that are zoned R3. And if we say that we can give a use variance to this one, this specific property, that it can do what an R1 property can do, I feel like in effect what we're doing is saying that we are making that decision instead of the city council, that R3 is going to allow single-family homes, because that means everyone else who comes in with an R3 zoned lot after this that wants to build a single-family home that is similarly situated to this applicant is going to be able to point to this decision and say, I'm similarly situated to this gentleman. I am entitled to have the same result that he received. Now, personally, do I think that that's the way it should be? Frankly, I do. But I'm not on the city council. And specifically because this is an issue that has been recommended to be reviewed in the master plan process, and because I think, and Greg can correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is something that city council is going to be looking at. I am leery about making that decision myself when I know city council is going to be looking at this decision and possibly changing the ordinance. So that's where I stand on this now, and I wanted to clarify that, for you and also for the applicant, because we do have 4 people here, and I understand that if the applicant wanted to possibly ask us to table the motion and come back when there are more board members here to make the decision, he probably could do that, and I want the applicant to know that that's a possibility. I'm leaning against approving this variance for the reasons I've just stated. So if the applicant wants to maybe table and wait for more people to come, not everyone on the board may feel the same way that I do. But those are my feelings on the issue right now.
I think it's a good point. The point is even though there is consideration of changing that zoning or making adjustments to it, our job does not go into that scope whatsoever. Our job is to look at the circumstances and the laws that are in place as of today as a legal board. And so therefore, to approve something like that, we would truly have to find something that we found different or unique about that property. And I think that's one of the things we would have to go into discovery on here tonight.
Well, at this point, there's really no uniqueness. It's the same type of house that's on that block. It's a single-family home.
I don't know if the issue of hardship has truly been addressed yet.
Has one of the issues here is, would it be a hardship to try to build a 40-unit property on here? Absolutely. I think it would be a hardship to really even build a 3-unit property on here, probably. But there are a lot of properties just like this all over the city that have 2-unit properties on here. Now, that's something I actually would like clarification from Justin. Justin, a 2-unit property, does that classify as a multifamily property?
Yes.
It does?
Well, 2-unit would be 2-family dwelling.
Is that something that's an R3
That's
permitted
R2.
property?
It's R2, I think.
Well, it would be permitted in R3 as well.
Yeah, it is permitted in R3, for sure.
Okay.
I think,
If,
well, I'm not an architect, I guess I would say. I think you might still have some of the same hardship challenges with parking on the lot, but it is a permitted use.
what's the required number of parking spaces for a 2-unit property or a multifamily?
For a 2-family, it is 2 spaces
Per unit?
per unit.
So with a 2-car garage and a driveway, that would be sufficient to have
plenty,
4
yeah.
spaces?
Yeah. Does it have to be off-street? Because that street obviously...
It does have to be off-street.
Okay, gotcha, okay. And that one, then it would, you're right, Ian,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and if I may, through the chair, keep in mind that we just implemented the residential parking zone, which has freed up a lot of spaces, parking spaces on that street. So unlike a year ago when you couldn't never find a parking space on that street, it is a little better.
Sure, permitted.
Not awesome,
No, but it's
but
permitted.
better than it was. I'd like to comment on what Commissioner Williamson mentioned, and that's, it is true that council, at this point in time, through conversations that I've had with them, are in favor of this change coming up with the master plan. However, we all know that what we agree upon today and what the final vote is on the day that it's presented to us can sometimes be different. So I don't want to say that we will absolutely pass this when it comes to us in January. So like you, I'm reluctant. I fully agree that we, moving forward, council needs to approve that change. I think the intent back in 2008 was that we wanted to encourage more density in the downtown area, and we wanted to, that therefore at the time leadership wanted to restrict R3 construction. It's not working. Flexibility is much more what we need to look at today, and that's why I think council will move in that direction. But you're right, we'll set a precedent tonight if we do confirm it, and then anyone else going forward is going to look at this decision tonight and say, if they did it, we could do it. And if council doesn't pass it, then we're in a whole mess.
That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
I mean, if he couldn't build a 2-unit property on there, then it will be easier for us to say there's a hardship because you're zoning something for a structure that's impossible to be built. That's why I was exploring the 2-unit idea. But if that's something that is possible to be built on there, then for us to say we're going to give you the variance. What we're really saying is R3 properties can actually have a single-family home on them.
Through the chair, may I request some additional information from Noah?
Oh, please.
Do you have to have a decision tonight? Are there things you can do with the property until after January?
I mean, not really. I mean, I can demo the property, so it's going to sit there.
It's got to be demoed anyway.
And the other side of it is, I may just decide to go for an R3 and then build something that's 3 stories. This lady will have a huge hardship because I will totally block every bit of light from her going up 30 feet. I won't have a driveway anymore, along with doing the same thing with a multi-unit, because I was discussing that 30-foot wide. I mean, when you're thinking that you're going to split something down the middle, let's say, you're talking about 13 feet wide on each side as like your dwelling. I mean, gets pretty narrow. So yes, is it possible? You know, yes, but now you're living in a micro kind of house, which in my opinion doesn't really create the opportunity for density. What you're looking for is, in my opinion, is families to come here who can buy a home and live there. You don't want 2 single people to come and rent a duplex that are each 500 or 600 square feet.
Well, through the chair, excuse me. There have been 2-unit condos built. In fact, on Camborne and Gainsborough, or at that point, is it Paxton? I don't know, whatever it is. And it's an upper and a lower, so you're thinking side by side. And I'm not saying that a 2-unit is what you want to do. I'm not saying that at all. It's just that you do have the opportunity to build a 2-unit, as Ian pointed out, and Justin confirmed. I think Greg's leading the direction that if you can wait, there might be some changes and you wouldn't even need a use variance. I've been on this board for almost 19 years, and I think we've done 1 use variance. Use variances are totally different than setbacks. And it really puts us in an awkward position because we would be creating a precedence. And if we know that something is hopefully going to be changed, if you could just allow that time, it might be to your advantage.
And if I may continue, it's the concern isn't someone on your street or the next street over that's also R3. It's the concern is that if we make the decision tonight, we then set the precedent for any R3 zone. So somewhere down 9 Mile, someone could say, you know what? They let this person build a house, a single home, and why shouldn't we be able to do it? And then we no longer have control over that zoning.
I respectfully disagree, because every piece of real estate is unique. And that's the most important thing about real estate. That's why when you get into a contract about real estate, there's specific performance, there's all these elements because of that uniqueness of that property. So just because you're zoned in that does not mean that everyone is created equal.
Excuse me, but through the chair, no, zoning is not unique, is what I'm going to tell you. Zoning is set in stone. And that's where we, as a pseudo-judicial board, have to follow those guidelines.
I didn't realize tonight we were changing R3 zoning to R1.
No, we're not, but we're setting a precedent for somebody else that wants to come in and do it in an R3 zone that might not be as conforming as yours. But we would set a precedent on that, and unfortunately, a use variance opens up so many doors. And I'm not sure that that's where we want to be as a judicial board right now.
Unfortunately, you're going to have 2 really unhappy people who live on each side of this property that I own when I do that. Then also, each one, let's say I build a 3-unit property there. Each one of the people, that could be 6 people, it could be 12 people. They're all eligible for a parking permit on Vester as well. So you do create a lot of congestion and a lot more burden on that street.
Through the chair, this is all true, and this is why I think every one of us up here would like to see that change made in the zoning ordinance. But we're not the ones who write the zoning ordinance. We're the zoning board. We enforce the zoning ordinance as the city council writes it.
Right. That's why it's the variance. That's why we're here for a variance.
And one of the key elements is that there has to show a hardship. And unfortunately, your situation doesn't show a hardship.
To the
And I
people next to
understand
me,
that you
though, it
want,
does.
pardon?
To the people next to me and the surrounding people on that street, it will be a hardship for them.
Okay, but we're not looking at that. We're looking at you. You have to have the hardship. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to work with you because we understand that you want to build a single-family home.
But
And
time
we would like to
costs money.
see that. However, we're dealing with a timing, a 2-month timing, that is difficult for us and puts you in an awkward situation. So what we're asking is there a possibility that this could be delayed for those 2 months until council has had an opportunity to review some of those changes, and then we can have the change that you're looking for, and then you wouldn't even need to come to the board.
Well, I'll just move forward probably with a multifamily on that property.
Okay.
And, there will be no greenery on the property. There will just be, it's just a hard situation to be in. And, there's also carrying costs of a property. So waiting 3 months or maybe doesn't sound like a long time, but, it does cost.
Through the chair, we understand that there will be costs, and frankly, you have not only every right to move forward with a multifamily development,
Yeah.
City Council has said in the past that's what they want to see on the property. I would encourage you, the next time a City Council meeting takes place, to attend that meeting and tell them the exact things that you're telling us, because City Council, the body that is actually empowered to amend the zoning ordinance, they're the ones who need to hear this, because City Council made that decision that that's going to be an R3 zoned property. And while we understand the situation that you're in, we have looked at your property to see if we can differentiate it in some way, for example, to the properties that sit on either side of it. And there isn't a way for us to differentiate your property from really most of the properties that are on that block right there. These are all properties that were originally built as single-family homes. We'll all sit up here and say we think it makes sense for a single-family home to go there, but we have to follow what the zoning ordinance is, and there are specific rules that govern when we can give a variance. And if those conditions don't exist, we can't give a variance just because we want to give one.
It's your decision.
The fact that you may move ahead and do something different within the confines of the zoning of that area, that's what the zoning was written for, and you'd have the ability to do that.
I was doing it more so, not only do I think that it's not going to look right in the neighborhood, but I think it's going to negatively impact not only the people's daily life, but it's also going to impact the value of those homes on each side.
I tend to agree with you, to be very honest. However,
You're kind of
that
putting
doesn't
them-
create the hardship that's necessary for us to make a legal decision that, yeah, that's okay. The issue is, I believe it was 10 years, remember the garage? Wanted 40 feet or some ungodly number and this and that and so
Couldn't
forth.
do it.
And it was up for debate at one point. We had other people lined up with an application to make their garages bigger and so forth before that week was out, because that was delayed for a following week because there was some special reason on the lot they thought it could be done.
Because it was a corner lot
And,
on a side street, yeah, so they
and
thought they
by
could.
setting that precedent, you basically violated your own law. So
That seems a
that's
little
what the
more
board is
extreme,
saying, is
though.
we have to look at this based on what would be justified under the current zoning.
I totally get that in one aspect, but the other aspect is the whole street is already single family except for 3 corners. And so it's not really like we're going to be like some sore thumb in the middle of this. This is really what this neighborhood is and what it has been for, 80, 100 years at this point.
And we really would like to say yes to you, but we can't. And that's the problem, is that we agree that you should have, a single family there makes sense.
I
But
still
right
don't
now, the way it's
understand.
zoned doesn't allow us to agree to give you a use variance, especially because we know that possibly in just 2 months, it could be all changed anyway, and it could conform to everything that you
see,
want to
to me,
do.
that-
So I'd
makes
actually
it
like
more
to, so we're
backwards.
kind of arguing in circles, sorry, through the chair. I'm going to offer the opposite opinion. There are only 4 of us, and you'd need all 4 votes. And I will say, you've approached this from the sense of, if you built the multi-structure, it's going to hurt the people around it. But what I worry about, I agree with Paul, like, who knows, right? They could decide R3 is where it's at, we need population density, we're going to be getting mass transit in here, who knows, I don't know. So I worry that you build this nice house, someone buys the house, and then 10 years later, they have two monstrosities on either side of them because we made a decision tonight that wasn't carried out 2 months down the line, and we could have waited. It was zoned that way for a reason. They're trying to push things towards the city center. And I understand, frankly, I knocked on that door to see if they would be willing to sell that property. So I understand where you're coming from. You want to do something really great, and you want to build something beautiful, and you want to like put a family in it and let them be happy. But I really, really think that you should wait on this one.
One of the other problems you can have in time is should the council decide that they like things the way they are, and you've gone ahead and built, you now can be classified as a pre-existing non-conforming home, which means there's restrictions in the future. If you need to do major overhauls, what is it, 50%?
Right.
You could have to tear the thing down.
We're in this situation right now, same situation.
So there's other circumstances that can be involved, and that could place other people in that same types of situation. So,
as Ian had mentioned, so there is an option on the table to table the motion for a use variance to see how council, if they approve the master plan and approve the change to the zoning, if they were to say no and this were tabled tonight, Noah could come back and apply again as long as it was tabled. If there was a no vote tonight, then he would have to wait a year to come back and propose
Right,
the
which
same
we
thing,
don't want
correct?
to do that to you.
But it sounds like the only thing with that is that in January, if they decide not to change the zoning, then I'm in the exact same situation I'm in right now.
And at that point, I would say focus more on the hardships that you're facing as opposed to the hardships of the neighbors. Because that was the one thing I felt like I was kind of missing too, is like, well, I know you said each piece is unique, but
I mean, that's how you legally go about issues with real estate. You know, it could be, you could have bought a $100,000 house, but it's in that exact spot, in this situation, with that view, with all these different things that you can't reproduce. So it's always a unique piece of property. That's the most amazing thing about real estate, is that every single thing is unique.
the property is, every property is unique, I'll give you that. But when you say
Exactly.
unique, when we're talking about unique circumstances, is there something unusual about the shape that restricts something? Is there other things that are definitives regarding building of a property or changing a property? Is this in an area where this creates certain circumstances? Did something happen from the time you purchased the house to today with your intent to do something? Was that a hardship created by government?
Been there forever in total disrepair, almost catching this person's house on fire, and now you have someone who really wants to make something significantly better, and instead of, we're getting a lot of pushback when we're really trying to enhance the value. I mean,
How long have you owned the property?
about 2 months.
So this is something you just recently, it's not something you had owned for years prior to the previous, for
Because I
example?
bought
like
it
some people.
from this guy who is known as a horrible landlord in all of Ferndale. Most of his properties are in total disrepair, from my understanding. And so I think I did everyone a favor by doing that.
And believe me, we appreciate your intent. There's,
There was a rat infestation. I mean, this lady told you how hard it has been living next to this house, and that also, having somebody who's going to go and take into consideration these neighbors so that she doesn't feel that way. So if I am forced R3, I mean, this lady is literally going to be totally in the shadows. She already has no southern exposure, and this would take away all her eastern exposure.
I think I'm going to put a cut on the back and forth at this point. What the board is trying to do, I think everybody's trying to agree with you as far as they can, and that is we're looking at a delay of roughly 6 weeks. How long is it going to take you to get the place down, cleaned up, everything ready to go with new production?
A week.
Well, that's
I mean,
pretty good.
I've already
Most
got
places
everything in place. All I have to do is file the permit.
So you're talking about 4 or 5 weeks now, in time for the council to come together and decide where they're going to go and save you any grief whatsoever in doing that. I mean, your intent was good, And that few-week delay, if we simply table this, I think is a great thing on your behalf. But I can see where the board is going, and the odds are you're not going to get the vote at this point.
No problem. We will maybe talk about it again, or we'll just move forward with, an alternative plan.
And for the board and the applicant, and just in transparency's sake, staff has already been working on this zoning ordinance change in anticipation that the master plan would change. So master plan likely is looking at end of January approval, and so either that meeting or the following meeting is when I would propose to come back with this
So we're really
ordinance change.
talking over 3 months.
I mean, if you have legally to go through the process to change an ordinance, that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, no, I'm just,
Yeah.
it was kind of belittled as a 4-week,
Well,
6-week thing, and it's really.
We're talking, I was
it's really
talking
double
based
that.
on January.
And
I was looking at the end of January.
I mean, and I think you'll be lucky if everything lines up to actually be ready to do that in a time when all the frost laws are in place, so then really you're pushed back to April.
I think I am, and I think everybody else here is looking to be accommodating. They feel for what you're trying to do,
Absolutely.
but our hands are simply tied.
I guess I
You
can
know, I
understand
mean,
how you feel that way.
It's like the police officer
don't
that
agree,
goes on the
but-
call and the kid just lit the neighbor's house on fire and everybody comes out and says, but this kid's a good kid and he's never really done, and you're expecting the officer to turn his head and walk away and say, well, okay. Then he set a precedent for every
I
other
don't really see the correlation with that, but.
legal aspect. This board is, like she said, it's a pseudo-judicial board, and the next alternative is the courts.
Okay.
And that's because it's based on law and our decision of interpreting that law.
Okay.
And that's where the concern lies.
Yeah, although I don't think we're gonna hurt anybody or any part of
We
Ferndale
don't
by
either.
doing this, so.
Well, we're not going to hurt anybody.
Through
We're
the
only
chair,
gonna do is-
hurting someone isn't the issue. The issue is that the first thing we need to find in order to give you a use variance is that the building or land cannot be reasonably used for any of the uses permitted by right or by special use permit in the current zoning district.
And it could.
We've established that it could be.
All right. Well, it won't be something nearly as nice or conforming to the actual existing block as it would be as a single-family home.
And that's why the board is trying to be as lenient toward you in the way they're approaching this as possible. They don't disagree with you. However, that doesn't always mean that's what we can consider.
Yeah, okay.
Any other further discussion?
I have an odd question. Are you planning to live in this property, or are you planning to sell it?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
My last bit of discussion would be to Greg. I think that you're probably going to take back to council from this, hopefully the message that this does need to be looked at, and it would be best if it be looked at quickly, because there are a lot of properties that are R3 properties that I suspect are probably going to see this exact same issue with, as people start looking at the existing housing stock there, start thinking about taking some of those down, putting up some newer homes that are a little bit roomier, a little bit nicer. We're going to be running into this again and again.
Absolutely.
So sooner rather than later for the council to look at this.
And staff would bring this to ordinance review prior to the master plan being.
Which I sit on the ordinance review,
Right.
so.
So we would bring it before the master plan's adopted so that it can be moved forward as quickly as possible.
At this point, then, the options are a motion to deny, a motion to table, which would offer additional latitude, or obviously in a motion to approve. Those are really the three choices.
When we do a motion to table, would there be a definite date?
You can postpone to the next meeting or a future
Probably a
meeting.
February meeting would give adequate time for,
That's why I wondered if.
that would give
we
them
had-
time to see what happens and get him back here as quickly as we can to try and accommodate the needs.
That's why I asked. Just wanted to.
That
Well, I
makes
guess
sense.
my question is, if council does move forward with changing the zoning, the applicant wouldn't need to come back.
No.
Correct.
I think the importance would be, I think we've made it clear that it wouldn't pass tonight with the amount of people here and who's here. So if it doesn't pass, at least now he doesn't have to wait a year, like he can come back and ask again in January or February, and then prevent, like maybe re-present a hardship that maybe wasn't looked at this time, something we didn't
Exactly.
consider, and that would still be open to them as opposed to having to wait all the way till next November. So that would be, I think, like the best play right now.
So
Yeah,
denying it
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
completely,
The
he has to wait
latitude
a
is there.
year.
Yeah, so I would motion to table this as long as Noah's willing to January or February, whatever it would end up being.
Formal motion to table to meeting of February 2017?
January or February, whichever one.
Wouldn't- Yeah.
I think you could just postpone it to a future meeting and then that
Postpone
leaves it-
indefinitely?
Right. I mean, then that leaves it up to Noah, should things not be passed in January.
Or if things take a little bit longer, because,
Right.
let's say we do that and you only say January 20th, but January 27th is when
Right.
actually all the business has been able to be.
Our meetings are the second Tuesday of every month.
Okay, so let me restate. I'll motion to table until a further meeting.
So
Support.
table indefinitely until further meeting. Do we have support for that?
I do.
And supported.
It's moved and supported. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Williamson,
Yes.
Steidemann,
Yes.
Polika,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
and Porter.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Thank you for coming down tonight. We do appreciate it, and we really do like your intent. But unfortunately, hands are tied with legalities and so forth, and hopefully this will work out for you.
And if I may, you might feel like you didn't accomplish anything, but you really did, because by bringing this forward, you kind of set a fire that, we need to handle now, so that we can get this moved forward as quickly as possible, so that we can accommodate you.
Yeah, positive precedent, you're right. Any further discussion this evening? Any communications or announcements?
Nope.
Hearing none, this meeting is therefore adjourned.
Thank you, Robert.
Hold that thought.
And thank you, John.
That's what the air here, my throat is going crazy. It's
Find
dry.
out.